What is up? What is up? Welcome back to another episode of Talkative. This is episode 26. Thank you guys for joining me on this Wednesday evening. And not to mention, this is actually the second time that I'm recording this episode. Had some really bad audio issues, so I didn't really want to use that footage. So I had to make the decision to record once again. If anything, this might be a two-part episode. So part one and part two. I'm going to divide it into two parts since I already discussed everything on that first badge of footage and that first clip. I'm gonna make this into two episodes, so it'll just be easier on my end, and you guys can have a two-part to this discussion because I feel like this was an interesting discussion that I discussed initially, and I feel like it could be a good discussion to have on this show as well and this overall topic. So, for episode 26, I want to talk about ableism and the different disability discussions and tropes and ways or practices or systems that you guys should avoid when talking about disabilities. For part one, so for the first half of this discussion, this episode, I'm going to just talk about ableism and define ableism and talk about the different tropes. And then part two, I'll move on to the different practices that people can go about when it comes to talking about disability and avoiding those tropes or those um, hobbies or not hobbies, habits, sorry, that people get into when it comes to disability discussion and how you can, bring about a better discussion when it comes to speaking or interacting with disabled people. So, when it comes to ableism, this is actually a term that I've always heard of, but I never really sat down and really analyzed or observed this term to a certain degree. And there's a lot that I learned from this article that we're going to reference and quote throughout this episode. Shout out to this website. Hold on. NPR, and shout out to the writer of this article as well. Very descriptive, very well put together article when it comes to ableism and describing ableism. Shout out to Shruti Ragkumar from NPR, who wrote this article, and this is the article that we'll be quoting and discussing today for this episode rather. So, ableism, just to give a simple definition of ableism is pretty much treating people unfairly because they have a particular condition or disability or medical condition. So, when you think about ableism, right? This is pretty much the act of treating someone a certain or a different way or a particular manner or unfairly because of what you perceive, because of what perceptions you have on that person who is disabled, right? Because of what you think of that person. And then those particular thoughts and opinions and beliefs depict the way that you treat that person. And most of the times, the treatment is not positive, it's rather negative. You're either down talking that person or discriminating on that person, prejudging that person, or having pity towards that person, and pretty much baby talking on that person. Which pity is a major thing that I am going to mention here. Pity is something that I don't condone and or support. If anyone wants to give me pity, I'll just take it as an action of, you're just trying your best to make me feel good, and you're pretty much faking your emotions. You're having this tone or this way of saying things because you want to have a reaction on me, or you don't want me to feel a certain way in that sense. And that's something that I don't condone, because honestly, when it comes to the disabled community, we should be able to receive the same energy. We should be able to receive the same just treatment as anyone would treat like a friend of theirs from their friend groups, or somebody that they've been talking to for more than, I don't know, 5 to 10 years, right? A good friend of theirs. We should be able to have that same feeling, that same energy, that same aura when it comes to talking to people. And there's no need for you to just have pity on a person, especially when you notice and when you know that that person is obviously capable of a lot more despite the condition. And that person can, let their voice be heard, can discuss, can conversate, can respond to you, can give you well and intelligent answers, can have really constructive and really, just healthy conversations. then that's when the pity really hits hard, and it's really at its worst when you know that this person is capable a lot more, but you choose to down talk on them, or you choose to baby talk them because you still don't want them to make them feel bad. If anything, pity, y'all, is gonna do the complete opposite. Pity is going to bring more of a negative effect, and pity's gonna make you feel even worse rather than you know, you're trying to forcefully not trying to make me feel better, or not, or trying to make me feel better is what I'm trying to say. But what you don't realize is that you having pity on me is actually making it far more worse. So you down talking me, you talking me in a certain way, or sugarcoating things, or changing your tone, is making it feel even worse. It's making me feel even worse emotionally, right? So it's something that I'll just never condone, and it's something that I spoke about in the very first episode of the show when I gave an introduction of myself and I spoke about my disability. I don't accept it, or neither do I condone it, and I feel like nobody should be going through any sort of pity, because pity feels like you just, again, a main, like, how do I say it, um part of this discussion, a main part of this discussion is going to be devaluing, or just value as a whole. When you pity someone, you're pretty much devaluing. You're not allowing that person to really show who they are as a person, or really show their true potential when you pity. You know, you're not allowing them to be, and you're not valuing them to the utmost degree, or to the utmost potential. So it really just brings about more devaluing, and it makes the situation even worse when it comes to just emotions, and how a disabled person goes about their day, when they're out in public, or that maybe their overall confidence, or their self-esteem, all those particular emotions and feelings become troubled when pity is involved, or down talking, or baby talking. So yeah, I just wanted to quickly mention that as well. Don't pity anyone that you know that is capable. Don't pity anyone that you know that is intelligent and able to do a lot more than you think. So, on the topic of ableism, like I said, ableism is treating people unfairly and having particular, or because they have a particular disability or medical condition. Like I said, we're going to be quoting a lot from this article because there's a lot that I find relatable in this article, and a lot that I enjoy to read and to obtain and observe from this article. So when it comes to this definition, disability activist Talila A. Lewis put it as clear, and she says, disability advocate Talia A. Lewis says a working definition of ableism is a system that places value on people's bodies and minds based on societal constructed ideas of normalcy, intelligence, and excellence. So, but like I said, this value that is put on this person is not a good value. This value is based on society norms, what is considered to be normal, and your own perceptions, right? Your own perceptions of what it is to be intelligent and excellent, or just normal. So that's pretty much what ableism is. Ableism is a negative system that rather bringing about good value and good emotions, it does the opposite. It devalues, and it just puts these ideas of normalcy and intelligence, and it intervenes with the ability of that person who is disabled. Because although yes, maybe some parts of our body don't work as well as others, or maybe we have a condition that limits us from doing other things, but at the same time we're capable of a lot more despite it. I mean, we could do a lot more despite it. So it's just really, really. As I was reading this, I was saying, "Wow!" Like I said, this is a term that I never sat down and said to myself, "Let me analyze this term." This is like the first time that I'm doing it, and it's really relatable, and I can relate a lot to it. And it's really, it's a definition that allows you to connect to your own real life experiences, and you begin to evaluate and say to yourself, this is so true. I mean, this is really how it is. Society has had a history of putting these ideas or these norms that we should follow, like these whether it be through your identity or the things that you do, the way that you speak, where you come from. It's like we put these norms and we say, okay, this is what you should be living by, or this is how you're going to be perceived by these norms. And it's like, at the end of the day, no matter what your situation is, disability or not, we're still we're a part of the same race. We're a part of the same creation here. Look, if you look at it that way. So even if you do put norms, in front of these people, even if you do say to them, okay, this is how I'm gonna approach you. This is how I'm gonna treat you because this is what society says we should do. This is what society says we should live by. And at the end of the day, it's really more of like, again, going back to self-reflection. It's more of a self-reflection. And you say to yourself, but wait a minute, aren't we all human? Aren't we all of the same creation? So even if that person is disabled or has a condition, that person is still like me. They're still a human being. They're still a human specimen. They're still a living being. So should I look at it from that perspective? Like, yes, this person may have his or her obstacles or his conditions or disabilities, but you know what? They're human just like me, so let me treat them like an ordinary human being. Let me treat them like a normal person. Let me just treat them as a part of society. And that's something that was mentioned in this article and in this discussion, that in topics of the tropes. I'm going to scroll down here and talk about the tropes before we go on about ableism. Disability is not, hold on, pretty much, disability should not be treated as a problem or something that needs to be solved in the eyes of society. For a lot of chronic medical conditions or a lot of like severe illnesses, much like cancer is an illness that, yes, it will have extensive research, and yes, it's been so many studies and things done to find a cure for cancer, because cancer has a cure. When it comes to disability, it's not the same thing. Disability is not a problem. Disability is more of a situational, it's a situational thing. It's something that either happened to us at birth or as we grew and developed, and it's something that over time we learn to accept. I feel like I see disability as a situation that allows us to come to acceptance, right? And it's a situation that we have no control over. I mean, the same thing for any illness like cancer, for example. There's no control over any illness. There's no control over any disability. We could do our best to just come to an acceptance and live the best life that we can live despite it. Yes, there's going to be hardships. Yes, there's going to be just things in the way and obstacles. But what better is it going to do? What better is it going to be or do for us if we dwell on the fact that we live with this condition, that we have this situation on our hands in our life, but we wish that it could be something different, or we wish that we can change it, rather than, let me accept it. Let me love myself and accept myself for who I am, and let me just find ways that I can just live the best life that I can live despite it. Let me go after what I'm passionate in. Let me go to school. Let me study. Let me just be just like everybody else. Let me be just like society and go through every practice and system and just live the best life that I can live. Obviously not the practices that, again, where people try to perceive what is normal or not. I mean, practices in the sense of like, going to school, just being a regular part of society. Let me just live the best life that I can live in the most positive way possible. This is not something that, we're going to go ask a medical personnel or medical professional, hey, can you like take like a moment? Can you take 6 months to like a couple of years to just make a study on my condition, come back with some research and just some details, and make a cure for my condition. Because listen, of course, any person that lives through this condition, if they hear that from somebody, if they hear that, oh hey, there's this surgical procedure that can be done to you, so that you can start walking again, or that you can walk for the first time, so that you can overcome your cerebral palsy, right? And of course, we're gonna receive that with such excitement and such happiness and joy, because hey, we're gonna be able to just not live with this anymore. Of course, we would like that's something that is, you can't even explain it. That's an excitement on a whole nother level. But realistically, when there isn't a cure for something, there's nothing you can do to just revert that or just manipulate it. And I feel like people, or based on this article, some people believe that there is a way to fix people who are disabled, that there is a way to just get rid of these conditions. And honestly, like I said, not everything is going to have a cure. Not everything is just going to be something that we can just do extensive research on, have all these medications and all these procedures and all these surgeries, and say, you know what, we can fix this. It's more of accepting and overcoming the fact that we are considered different, that we are not considered normal, and just having that confidence in society and just being a part of it. That's more of the battle. That's the battle, rather than finding a way to fix it or finding a cure to it. The battle is overcoming those negative emotions and those negative perceptions or ideas that society puts when it comes to a disabled person, right? So, quite frankly, there is no way to find a cure to this or to fix this in any way possible. And that's one of the tropes that is mentioned here. You can't fix this. There's no way to fix this. This is not something that is in need of a fix, rather than a need of acceptance. This is not something that's rather than need of, okay, we need to just get rid of this. No, this is more of a, let's bring these people in. Instead of getting rid of it, let's bring them in. Let's allow them to be a part of what we are known to be, which is a human race and a society. And yes, you would wish a lot of people would think the way that I think, or that some people do think, in a positive manner, where society could just let bygones be bygones, let things that they consider norms go away, and to just love one another and accept one another and allow people to be a part and participate no matter what the case is. And that's really what's most important in that case. So, it's just remember that it's just not something, a disability is not something that is in case of a fix, rather than acceptance, rather than, okay, let's let them be a part of this. Let's let them have their take, have their part of participation, and their just overall involvement in what is society and living the best life that they can live, rather than having this be an exaggerated case of solving something or fixing something, when realistically that not everything has a cure. So that's just how I see it. And yeah, I mean, again, it's acceptance. Not everything's going to have a cure. As much as we would love that answer, we would love to hear that every disability in the United States, or in the world rather, is curable. That isn't the case, and we just have to resort to acceptance. Now on tropes, back to ableism and the rest of the tropes that I'm going to discuss for part 2. I'm going to read this quote that explains ableism a little bit more, and we'll move on from there. So, as quoted on the article, an ableist belief system often underlines negative attitudes. So, like how I discussed, I added these words in here as well: pity, prejudgments and discrimination, stereotypes, and stigma toward people with psychosocial disabilities. Ableism refers to attitudes in society that devalue and limit the potential of persons with disabilities. Ableism is an analogous. Am I saying that right? Sorry. Ableism is analogous to racism, sexism, or ageism, and sees persons with disabilities as being less worthy of respect and consideration, less able to contribute and participate in society, or of less inherent value than others. Ableism may be conscious or unconscious and may be embedded in institutions, systems, or the broader culture of a society. It can limit the opportunities of persons with disabilities and reduce their inclusion in the life of their community. So, like I said, we want to live a life just like the rest of you, the rest of society, just like the rest of you guys. For those who are not disabled, we want to live that life. Don't get me wrong. Yes, we do. And of course, there's going to be some things, some limitations, and some things that might set us back. But we're going to keep pushing forward no matter what. And we need that support. We need that feedback. We need that help. That extra love from those who are not disabled, that extra appreciation and acceptance, because that's what's going to fuel our fire at the end of the day to keep wanting to live the life that we live, despite what society considers to be normal or not. That's all we want. We want the best lives for ourselves and for our families and for our communities, for our brothers, our siblings, our parents. We just want to live the best life despite everything. So, onto the monoliths. I'm going to break down these monoliths, and that'll be it for the first part of this episode. Like I said, I recorded this episode previously, but I had really bad audio issues. I hope that the audio issues are fixed with this re-record, and I'll make this be like a two-part thing for the next two episodes. So this one and episode 27. So here's a couple of the monoliths that I, jotted down or that I took note of, and that I would want to discuss here really quick with you guys in regards to ableism. First one is inspirational narratives. Now this is, I'm going to define this based on this quote that I have jotted down here from McDonald Harita. It's not really necessarily my disability that I've had to overcome. It's the negative attitudes and stereotypes that come with a disabled person that is more exhausting. So attitudes, much like inspirational narratives. So you saying things like, okay, this person who is limbless, for example, or this person who is in a wheelchair or disabled, inspire me, but they don't inspire you because of the things that they've done, or their work ethic, or their history, or their accomplishments. They solely and only inspire you because of the disability. So pretty much putting the disability as an upfront way or excuse as to saying things like, you inspire me or you motivate me, and you don't really see the value of the person in many different other areas. You just see the value on what's in front of you, on the bigger picture, which is the condition or the disability. And that's pretty much what creating inspirational narratives is. And what it does is it objectifies people who are disabled or who have disabilities for the benefits of non-disabled people. So an example that was taken from the article was actually, I'm going to read it straight from here. It was regarding, asking somebody to go to prom during high school prom season, right? So it's quoted on here, and it says, an example of inspiration, and not to mention that it gets really intense to the point that they've made a term. They've pointed out a term to identify this problem or this trope that I can't really say here on the episode because I'll get the video flagged and the video will probably get taken down. But pretty much, she's saying inspirational narratives is the viral videos that get spread. So this is one of the examples. During prom season of a high school football player asking a girl with Down syndrome to prom. Being asked to prom is something that almost everyone wants, she said, but videos of disabled people getting asked to prom get amplified because society perceives disabled people as pitiable and unlovable. This is just one example of how inspirational narratives degrades, exploits, and others disabled people. So, like I said, your actions you need to make sure that your actions come straight from love and straight from your own will, and not because you see disabled people as like pitiable or unlovable. So let me do let me do this action to make them feel loved. Let me do this to make them feel, you know, affection or involvement. And that's the problem. And most of the time when people post these viral videos of like somebody doing something nice for a disabled person, or if it's like taking them out to prom or whatever the case may be, they get a huge reaction out of it, of course. And they get all the comments, all the likes, all the shares, and all the, all like, this is sweet, this is amazing, you're an amazing person for doing this. But it's like, did that person really take this action because they wanted to, or they wanted to seem nice, or they wanted to do something that seemed nice because they believe that, these people don't get enough love, or are unlovable or pitiable? You get what I mean? So it's like, are you doing this for the validation of others and for you to have this positive image onto yourself? Or are you doing this because you really wanted to? Because it came under your own will and your own heart. And that's pretty much what inspirational narratives is. Like doing something that seems as an inspiration or positive, not because you want to do it or from your own benefit. It's because you want to see what reaction you get, or see what effect it will bring, if that makes any sense. So it's a huge thing, and I feel like that's another thing that I want to touch base on is validation, especially when it comes to cases like these, or like viral videos like these that were described. Don't do anything for validation, even if it involves a disabled person. Don't do it because another person told you that you should do it, or that you should do it because it's an act of kindness. Do it because you want to do it. Do it because your consciousness told you, hey, let me do this because I want to do it, because I actually really like this person. I like hanging out with this person despite their condition. So let me just do something nice for them because it's coming out of me, not because someone told me to do so. So never seek validation, even if it's another like particular situation. If you're like, what's a situation that I can think of? Oh, being nice to a girl. So let's say you bought a gift for a girl, and let's say your whole gang, your whole squad of buddies is watching you present the gift to the girl, and being nice. If it's like a bouquet of flowers, or whatever the gift is, a necklace, whatever the gift is. Let's say you're doing it, and you know that there's a crowd watching you, and you know that there's a crowd that's going to let out a reaction once the moment is over, right? And then they say, oh, like, look at my boy doing big things, blah blah blah. And then you're like, yeah, and you're laughing, you're celebrating it. But then that's where the whole conception of, are you really doing this for yourself because it came out of your own will, or are you doing this because you realized that there was a crowd watching you, and looking at the actions that you did, and praising you or applauding you for it? And that's the problem with seeking validation. You're not doing things out of your own will. You're doing things out of the will of other people. And that's just to see the reaction that you get out of other people. So it's the same thing with inspirational narratives. Make sure that you do things because you want to do these actions, and it's coming out of your own will, not the will of others. So on to the next trope that we have here regarding disabilities. We should never treat a disability as a monolith, which I have it here. I'm going to pull it up as well to give you guys the definition of what a monolith is. A monolith is a large and impersonal political, corporate, or social structure regarded as intractably indivisible and uniform. So something that only has one significant meaning or one story to it. And the example that it has here on Google actually says the dominance of broadcasting monoliths limits local programming. So in the topic of disabilities, we should never see a single problem connect to a broad community or a large community. We should never see it as everyone here shares the same problem, because that's not the case. Everybody who's disabled has a different story. Everybody who is disabled goes to their own particular battles and their own battles only, and their battles are different from my battles, and that's what we need to see it. Excuse me. That's what we need to see it as a community filled with wide. I have it written here as well. A wide range of experiences and subcultures. Disability isn't a monolith. It's important to acknowledge that not everyone has the same experiences. Within the disability community, there are several sub-communities, and they all have what I just described, a wide range of experiences. Everyone has their own story to tell. Everyone has their own situation and their own battles. It's never just the same experience for every single person. So just keep that in mind. And the last one that I'm going to talk about today, I'm going to wrap up this first part of a two-part discussion or episode, is infidelization. So based on what I have here in my notes, McDonough-Herrera defines infidelization as, infidelization, I was saying it right, as a non-disabled person having more power than a disabled person and using that power against them to invalidate their thoughts, opinions, or experiences. This can show up in numerous ways, such as indirectly speaking to a disabled person or assuming that the individual can't advocate or speak for themselves. The infidelization in such language is harmful, as it leads to people not being able to make choices in their lives and the assumption that they shouldn't. But pretty much, speaking for this person because you assume that they won't have the ability to speak up for themselves, or talking to them in a particular way, kind of relates to what pity is, or what we talked about pity earlier in the episode. You gotta let people who are disabled have a sense of independence, because let me tell you something. For years, right, we've been living a lifestyle that is filled with dependency, and a life that we have to depend on a lot of resources and a lot of people and a lot of help. That's not to say that we never appreciated or love the help that we get. Of course, we have to be grateful for the help that we get. But it gets to a point where a person who lives with a disability wants to break out of that bubble, wants to break out of that custom, that we need to be living on dependency, that we need to live on depending on other people and on the resources, or even like our wheelchairs and stuff like that. We want to break out of that bubble. We want to just shatter it and be free and say, you know what, for once in my life, let me have a sense of independence. Let me have a feel of independence. Let me see how it feels not to have to depend on a person or something or a resource. So we need that. We desire that. And people who utilize infidelization and don't talk on people, or talk for them, or talk to them in practically a baby manner, like in a baby way, limits that ability to obtain that independence that we've always desired for so many years, because of the dependent lifestyle that we've been living. So just make sure you don't down talk on somebody that you know has the capabilities or the abilities to just speak for themselves, be more independent in many situations, big or small. Make sure you give them their place. Make sure you give them their space and their chance to really shine out, to really say, you know what, this person has the courage, this person has the will, this person has the need and the want to do things on their own, and I'm going to allow them to do so. But if I start to down talk them, or speak for them in every instance, or just be their voice when they clearly have a voice of their own, then I'm not doing nothing in their favor. I'm not helping them in that sense. That's what infidelization is, and how I feel like people should go about. It's just simply letting the person that is disabled have a little bit of independence in their life. Let them do their own thing. Obviously, with care and moderation. You're not just going to let a disabled person live a fully independent life. But if they say to you, you know what, I can make this call, I can have this conversation, I can do certain things, I can reach for this, I can do this on my own, even if the task is simple as brushing your teeth, right? They can do it. If they say they can do it and they have the capabilities and they're able, he can do it. So, as a non-disabled person, we need to take that in consideration that this person has the will and the courage, and we need to let them do their own thing. Independence. But with that being said, that'll be it for the first part of this discussion. We're gonna end off with the disability fact of the episode, and we're gonna come back to talk about different practices that we should take or that non-disabled people should take when it comes to discussing disability and going about with conversations with disabled people. I hope you guys like this, and I hope this is very just informative and just raising the most awareness that we can, because obviously when I have these type of discussions, that is the main goal, is to raise awareness and allow these conversations to be heard, because you don't hear these conversations in a lot of podcasts or content creation platforms nowadays. So that's really the main goal here, is to raise awareness on these areas of discussions and conversations and topics. So I hope you guys like this. If you guys want to hear more about this when it comes to just ableism and different tropes and practices and things and hobby and habits that you should avoid, let me know in the comments. And yeah, let me know on all socials, as I usually post all clips on TikTok. You guys can let me know if this is a topic that you want to hear more of.